Hey, everybody. Welcome to Monday Afternoon Roundtable. This is episode 28. We've got a special guest today. It's an old friend of ours, Michael Austin. Mike worked with me and Tim at the sheriff's office in Caldwell County, and you were on Tim's shift many years ago. We're not quite as young as we used to be. I guess that was in the late 90s, early 2000s.
Early 2000s, yeah.
Yeah. Mike has a very special project going on, and we're going to talk about that in just a little bit. But we're going to talk about your background first. You were in the military before going into law enforcement. Your state, what you were in the Marine Corps?
Yes, so I did 4 years of active duty in the Marine Corps. In that time, I was infantry Marine, and I was also a security force Marine. I did some time on USS Carl Vinson as a Marine Detachment security officer, and also went into the 2nd Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team, where I finished off my 4 years, and that's when I came to meet you guys at the sheriff's office.
Yeah, let's talk about your Marine Corps career a little bit. Do you think you really enjoyed it? I mean, was it something that was meant for you? I mean, that kind of made.
Yeah, so I love the Marine Corps. In fact, from a kid, that's all I wanted to do was join the Marine Corps. I didn't care about school, and I knew that I was going to be a Marine. So when it came to the point to when I can enlist, that's what I did. You know, I called the recruiter, and I went and I did all the work to enlist at 17 and go into the Marine Corps, and it was just probably one of the best experiences of my youth for the fellowship. Lifelong friends. I still talk to Marine Corps buddies, and
they're probably all over the country.
They are, you know.
Yeah. Great thing about Facebook and social media, you can stay in contact with them.
That's true. You know, I have a really good friend out of Virginia that I stay in contact the most, but you know, I have some friends that I stay in contact with out of New York. One's a firefighter, one's a police officer. You know, there's some that are U.S. Marshals, Air Marshals, and you know, they're all getting to the point of retirement now. You know, because it's been so long ago. We were in 96 to 2000 time frame when I met all these guys.
Yeah, and so that was definitely a true calling for you. That was what you were meant to do.
I feel it was. You know, I had a lot of purpose in the Marine Corps and a lot of drive, and it kept me motivated, and really for the brotherhood of it. You know, being there for my fellow Marines and knowing that I had purpose there. We did some deployments together, and fortunately, you know, my time in there, even though we deployed into combat, we never actually saw combat. So I was very fortunate in that aspect in my Marine Corps time.
And you're very service driven, not just in your military, but even in with law enforcement, your time in law enforcement, but even in your quote unquote civilian jobs, you like to serve the community and be part of the community and camaraderie and things like that. Let's talk about the transition when you got out of the Marine Corps. Did you stay on as reserve or anything, or did you go out altogether? Or
so when you enlist in the service, or at least when I enlisted in the service, you enlist for 8 years.
Okay.
So 4 years of that was active duty, and 4 years of it was reserves. And the type of reserves that I was in was the inactive reserves, but I was still
eligible for callback for
right, and I still had to go to Charlotte every year to check in, make sure that I was within the standards and that I could be called back. In fact, I was recalled at one point when 9/11 happened.
Because that was right at that time frame.
It was. And I remember them saying that everyone in this room, almost everyone in this room are going to get orders today, and you will be reactivated into the Marine Corps. And then they said the only people that will not be reactivated in the Marine Corps are active law enforcement officers. And so that was one reason why I didn't get recalled that day.
And you had started your career. Tell us about transitioning into law enforcement, that period of your life.
So when I got out of the Marine Corps, I wasn't really prepared. I didn't really do a whole lot of research at that time in my life. I got out and I was looking at the newspaper for a career, really, for a job, something I could apply for. And I saw the advertisement for the basic law enforcement training. I said, you know what, I think I want to do that. So I drove up to the college and went and found where to sign up. And I was told that the deadline had already passed and I couldn't get into this class. And I said, well, that sucks. I just got out of the Marine Corps like last week, and I really want to, I really want to do this. And the guy I was talking to, Andy Burgess, who's a retired first sergeant from the Army, and he said, well, you know what? I'm going to make an exception for you. I'm going to get you in this class. And so that's where it really started. While I was in BLAT, I was offered a job at the Sheriff's Department before I graduated. And, I took the job, and that's how I got started in law enforcement at that time.
And did you enjoy that?
Loved it, every minute of it. It was probably one of the most rewarding jobs that I've ever had, still to this day. It was, the pay wasn't great, but being there for the community and making sure that the citizens of Caldwell County were safe, just anything that I could do, it was very rewarding.
It was very service oriented, and I enjoyed my time doing it too. You feel rewarded. You don't get to do it every day, but every now and then you make a difference.
Right.
And you can say that with a military career also, or any kind of public service, first responders, firefighters, teachers, whatever. But it gives you you're like, hey, you might have a bad day, but the next day you get to do something that's really rewarding. And you think, hey, this makes up for that.
Yeah, for sure. I remember coming down 321. I was up in the Blowing Rock area, still part of Caldwell County, and I was driving down, and there was a man on the side of the road, and he was changing his tire, but he was just standing there. So I pulled over, and I ended up changing his tire for him. But he's like, I think I broke my leg. And it didn't look broken to me, but I'm not a doctor. I had no medical experience. And I said, okay. So I called an ambulance for him. And, we got his car towed and got him in the ambulance and left. And he ended up writing a letter of appreciation. It was something that I wasn't expecting. And that's what really, those unexpected wins like that, where I wasn't asking for anyone to say that I did anything for this man. I was just doing my job. But he appreciated it so much that he reached out to my command staff and said, hey, this guy, while doing his job, really helped me out. And I don't think his leg was even broken, but he felt it was.
Yeah. And you served on patrol and as a K-9 handler and on the special response team.
That's correct.
So that was your skill set coming from the Marine Corps. It kind of it helped with that.
It really did. So in the Marine Corps, especially being in the Fleet Anti-Terrorism Security Team, we learned a lot of tactical type. We were very tactical. So carrying 2 weapon systems, room clearing, just your infantry tactics and stuff. A lot of everything that the Caldwell County SRT team needed to be at that time was what I learned.
Woodland ops.
Yes. Yeah, we spent a lot of time in the woods when I was on the SRT team. Because the meth wasn't as big. I think it was just starting back in that time frame, but marijuana was huge, and a good place to grow that marijuana was in the hills of Caldwell County.
Oh yeah.
So we spent a lot of time out there in the hills of Caldwell County, setting up on, waiting for the people that are harvesting these plants to come back, or tracking them down when they're doing their help me out when the helicopter goes.
Oh
around,
yeah, the interdict
eradication.
the aerial. I'm drawing a blank too.
When they look for with the heat signal.
Yeah.
So we spent a lot of time in the woods, and also a lot of our search warrants that we were a part of were drug based, so we were doing a lot of room clearing within the county, and so that experience pulled right into law enforcement for me. It was great.
And then from there, you transitioned back to the military. Was it part-time through the National Guard?
Yeah. So when I left law enforcement, I was looking for more pay, really. So I tried multiple different things.
Because local law enforcement, even to this day, it's better than it was when we were in it by far. But still today, they don't get paid what they deserve.
No, they do not get paid what they deserve. And if you're, and I did not have a family at the time. So I could only imagine what it would have been like if I did have a family. I struggled financially during that time. And so I wanted to find a more flourishing career, if you will. And what I found in those struggles was that I didn't have the skill set to move into a career that paid well or even more than law enforcement. And so I started to devalue myself.
About how old were you then?
I was 26, 27 years old, I think, about that time when I left law enforcement, and just struggling to find something to that was actually going to bring me out of that poverty state.
And that poverty can put you in a funk, a mental and physical funk, where you're just, it's all interwoven.
It is, and when you're sitting there and you're having to look at how much credit you have on your credit card, or if you have $10 in the bank so that you can eat that day, that's very hard on someone. And in knowing that at one point you had so much value and now you don't is really hard to really grasp that and to come to terms with it. And it can go several different ways. It could have led me down a path of drug use. It could have led me to being a statistic of suicide. But fortunately for me, I was able to recover out of that by joining the National Guard. And it was just a phone call from my now brother-in-law who said, have you ever thought about joining the National Guard? And I said, no, not really.
It never entered your mind. But
yeah, I've never even thought about it. And he's like, oh, okay. And I said, but I will. And so I did. And a couple days later, I was actually in the National Guard. I didn't have to go through boot camp again, being that I was from the Marine Corps.
Was it hard to transition from one branch to the other, or was it easy,
no,
or was it or a little bit of both?
It is hard for a Marine to go into the Army. I would think, because it is different, and then especially the National Guard, it's coming from a very well-oiled machine like the type of unit I was in the Marine Corps. Then going to a National Guard where you're showing up on the weekends and you're around people that weren't your brothers in the Marine Corps. That was kind of hard.
Because you had limited time with them.
Right. Yeah. So that was hard. But we were deploying, and that's when I saw my first active duty paycheck at the time. And if you remember, I was struggling. So I looked at this active duty paycheck, and I was like, wow, a lot of things have changed since I gotten out, because that was a 9-year break in service that I had. And I looked at this, and I was like, I need to go back active duty. I mean, because this is what's going to really get me to the point that I need to be at. And so I was contemplating after our deployment, getting out of the National Guard and going regular Army active duty. But what I found out was the National Guard had an active duty program. It's called AGR, Active Guard Reserve Program. And so that was my goal, to get into that AGR program, which I did in 2012. And I had tons of great mentors, Chris St. Clair, Shane Trantham, some of on different spectrums of how they managed and led, but yet really good mentors, and it gave me a way to really advance my career, is learning from those two different spectrums of people. And I learned that building relationships was the key to a successful career. So that was my main goal. It was to keep on building relationships, looking at what I needed to do to make it to the next rank and doing it.
And you went full time.
I was.
You transitioned from part time or reserve, I guess is the terminology.
But, yeah,
or have
they
you
call it
or active?
a drilling soldier.
Okay.
Munday. Because when you start to call it reserves, then that's the federal side. This is
Gotcha.
the state side.
I got you.
But yeah, so I was on a Title 32 order, which was an active duty order within the state of North Carolina, but it was active duty. It counted towards my active duty time. So it took my federal time, and it combined it in. Took my reserve time, combined it in for my time in service for pay, and that's where I started. And I started in supply and logistics field.
That's in law enforcement. That was one of my things I enjoyed, and most people don't think about it, but logistics and planning and making sure everybody's got what they need. You know, we did radars or flashlights or what. Is that kind of sort of, but from a military end,
right? So,
and that helps in the business end of anything,
yes,
or planning of any kind of.
So there was two decisions that really changed the path of my life. One was joining the National Guard. Two was deciding to be a logistician, because the option at the time, I wanted to join as a military police officer with my law enforcement background. And then when we were deploying, they didn't have any military police spots available. And so they gave me a choice between being a cook and being a supply guy.
Well, that was the obvious, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, I'm not going to be a cook.
Yeah.
You know, so I chose supply, and that was the best decision I ever made, because once I did that, that opened me up to the whole world of different types of units that I could be a part of. And also
all the units just about.
Every unit needs a logistician with it for that planning, for getting the supplies. And what it did for me was it gave me skill sets for after the military, you know, and that was a huge thing, because when I retired last year, I was able to transition into a corporate job that I would not have been able to do if I would have stayed into, you know, that traditional infantry, you know, or your military police. You know, that limits you on what your military skill sets will bring you to.
Yeah. I'm going to go off topic a little bit, but as far as logistics concerned, I read a book on Dwight Eisenhower, and he grew up dirt poor in Oklahoma. He's a real good football player. One of his neighbors got into West Point, the academy, to play football. Contacted this was 100 years ago. Said, hey, I got a buddy that I grew up with, was a great football. They got him through his congressman to get a scholarship to play football at West Point. Eisenhower graduates, becomes an officer in the Army. They make him the football coach of the Army, whatever, you know, like the traveling football team. Well, his entire career was logistics. He wasn't an infantry soldier or a tank or battalion, Army or artillery, whatever you call it.
Right.
Well, anyway, he served under MacArthur and Patton at different times. He was MacArthur was a general, and he was like a colonel in the Philippines before World War II. Anyway, always did logistics. Then World War II broke out, and they speed promoted him. Even though he didn't have battle experience, they wanted somebody from logistics. Right. Just to show how important, because he had hands in everything.
Logistics wins wars.
That's exactly. So that all right. I was just making a point about how important that. And not only does it win wars, but just like you said, it transitions to the business end of any kind of business or any kind of job.
Right.
No matter what you're doing, you got to have logistics.
Yeah, for sure. And you get that operational experience out of it. With the job that I did as supply, They call us supply sergeants. And when you look at it, which I had to do last year when I was transitioning from retirement, I had to figure out what my job transitioned into on the military, or from military to civilian. What was the civilian equivalent? And I found out, and I really wasn't aware of this, but I found out that I was an operations manager and I was a
project manager.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say.
And so, and so that really opened the door wide open for me to transition into the corporate world. And so, what I've found at the corporate world is it's great. It provides for my family. I like the people I work with, but I'm missing that service. And that's kind of, where I'm circling back around to wanting to create this nonprofit and to give back.
Yeah.
And I want to give back to veterans. And
let's talk about, let's hold that thought just for a minute. Let's talk about your transition from military to the civilian end. You would say, I've always heard the term, if you're a Marine, you're a Marine for life, or if you're a soldier, you're a soldier for life. You, even though you were in logistics, you still have to pass a PT. You have to stay qualified with your rifle, all that stuff that a soldier does. Did you suffer any injuries or any things that hurt, that put stress on your body?
Oh, yes, for sure. So the way my career looked like, I went from my logistics time frame as an E5 was in the military police realm. I was promoted to a staff sergeant, and I went into recruiting and retention. And so there, of course, I'm having to still pass my PT test. I'm still having to fire my rifle.
So you're staying in combat shape.
You have to. I mean, that's
because you're a soldier,
that's
regardless of your.
You need to maintain the minimum standard, but as any Marine would tell you, or anyone that has any type of drive would tell you, the minimum standard is not enough. You have to exceed for higher standard than the minimum. And so that's what I did. I was not going to only do the minimum. I always strive to be better at my job, at physical fitness, at the marksmanship. There was always that drive to become better. So after I left recruiting, I went into I was a supply sergeant for a medical company for about 3 years, and then I was pulled into special operations, and that was probably one of the most highlights of my career. I was vetted for a top secret clearance. I worked with Green Berets. I worked with I was the lowest ranking person there as a staff sergeant.
That's pretty well. That's saying something, man.
So we had lieutenant colonels, and we had a colonel as the commander, we had sergeant majors, and master sergeants, and it was a very elite group of people that I was a part of. And one thing that really sets it apart from any other place that I ever been in the military was these group of men realized how well they accepted me a lot more than other units would, because they knew the value I brought to them. If they needed something, they came to me to get it logistically, equipment.
You're a problem solver.
Yeah. So if we needed to plan a move, they came to me to plan that move. And that's one thing where I was part of the team. I trained with them. I had to shoot with them. I had to move with them. I had to communicate with them. And that did put a lot of stress on a 40-year-old body. And I even went to the Special Forces Basic Combat Course. I think I was 38, 39 years old at the time.
That's saying something.
And it's a 2-week course, and it really just teaches you how to shoot and move with a Special Forces operator, but yet very physically demanding. So the military puts great strain on your body, even in a training environment. And so when I left that world, I took a promotion to Sergeant First Class, and now as a platoon sergeant, I was a battalion logistician. I had a lot more responsibilities. and also was kind of milking a lower back issue that I had. And I really didn't think it was going to go anywhere until one day I was at the rifle range, just doing a traditional, conventional prone position shooting, nothing
Mm-hmm.
spectacular, and I couldn't get up. And come to find out, I had some really bad back issues. I had, a couple discs are out of place. It started to press on my spinal cord, which was giving me sciatica, and it made me non-operational anymore. So I went from being fully operational, meeting the standard, exceeding the standard. Now I'm on a profile. I can't do anything because it will inflame my back so bad that I can't move. And so I started to look for surgery options because I was only at 17 and a half years about 17 years at that time of active service. I was at 20 years of total combined service. And I never wanted to get out of the service.
You wanted to be a lifer.
No, I was going to be a lifer 20, 30 years. As long as I could stay in, that's what I wanted to do. But there's other plans. God has other plans for me because the surgeries that I was told that could possibly help, could also make it worse. The only thing they could do is get in there and kind of clean out the area around those discs and that spinal cord and relieve the sciatic pressure. It's not going to really relieve your back. And there's also a risk that we could paralyze you while you're on the surgery table. So I didn't want to go that route. And that's what forced me to medically retire in 2022.
And this all, I'm sure that was devastating. You don't have a plan B at that point, did you? Or, I wouldn't think you would.
I wasn't planning ahead at that point. I wasn't thinking life outside of the military because that's what I knew and that's what I wanted to stay. That's what I wanted to do. And so so that's when I had to start researching life outside of the military and what could I do, and talking about transitioning my skill set over. But I also went through very severe times of depression because I was losing my military career. And that was even before I was out, just knowing that I was being told that I had to leave. It triggered very high anxiety, depression, and the solution for that in most cases are pills. Take these pills; it's going to help you. And so I did. I would try different types of mood stabilizer pills to help with that depression, and I never liked the feeling that that I had. It was almost like that it had control over me. I didn't have control over it. And so I started I was searching for something else. It was real hard for me to keep up with my wife and my son, who's almost 8 years old, very active, and now I'm not. I could be a very active person, go on these, whatever you guys want to do, I can keep up, and then I was to the point where I couldn't do that, and so I started turning to fellowship with other men, and that's what really level set me and made me make the decision that I don't want to be on any pills anymore. I think that I can do it without the pills because I'm finding what I need from this group of men that I'm
in the Masonic Lodge. You talked about that. That kind of based. So by having those, and you brought up off camera how you really worked at being in the Masonic Lodge, not just a card-carrying member, but an active member.
Right.
Is that kind of more the fellowship, the camaraderie, the service, helping others?
It is, yeah. Very much so. So I manage a couple Facebook pages for them, and I started to go through the chairs, as they would call it, and so I see them every Tuesday for practice, and anytime we have a meeting, and then I started branching out to other types of meetings that they had, and I don't know that it's the equivalent of AA, but maybe it is, because that fellowship has really level set my mood
Mhm.
and how I really cope with where I'm at.
Yeah, and that kind of, correct me if I'm wrong, but your latest venture that we're going to talk about, I would, I'm speculating here, but correct me if I'm wrong. Your military service, the Masonic Lodge, and what you went through after getting out of the military, the the questioning you had or your purpose, all that stuff, kind of all meshed together because you wanted to keep serving and be active in a group while helping other veterans. Because you got to think, every veteran, whether they're getting out on their own or by injury or whatever, there's going to be some kind of period where they're questioning, what am I going to do?
Right.
Am I geared for, I'm used to doing this. I'm used to being in charge of this, that, or the other, whether it's just something as simple as saying, I got to keep my body healthy. I've got to maintain shoot. I've got to be able to operate this equipment, these platforms, all that.
They have purpose.
Purpose. And you lose that purpose. What are you going to have? The transition is rough. I'm sure it's not a smooth transition.
No. So, just for example, if you do 4 years in the military and you're in a MOS or job that doesn't really transition into a civilian career, and everyone that's in, I would say a high percentage of people that join the military do it for 4 years and they want to get out.
Mhm.
And they complain about it, because that's what we do in the military. We do a lot of complaining. But when they get out, that's their sole point in time that they always reference back to, was my time in the military. And then if you get out and you struggle, some of the reasons why you could struggle is because, yeah, you had it rough. You did. If you were infantry, in the Army, Marine Corps, anywhere, you had a rough time, but you were fed, you had a place to sleep, and you had people that cared about you around you all the time. And so now you take,
and you're growing as a person every day.
Yeah, you're learning. You're learning through experience. Now you take all that away, and now you're just a single person that a lot of people don't understand, because they don't understand your humor. They don't understand your stories. They don't know what you've been through. And we are in a thank a veteran type culture now. But that thank you, we appreciate it. I'm not going to say we don't. But to fully understand it, you got to kind of take more time than to just thank that veteran or pay for the meal. And believe me, when I had my meals paid for me because I was in uniform, really appreciated it. But that veteran may be struggling and may end up a statistic, or may end up underemployed because he now doesn't have the fellowship that he needs. He doesn't have those people surrounding him, lifting him up and saying, you have purpose. And he or she is probably looking for that purpose to thrive again. And it's a lot of those thanks could be in a form of fellowship, friendship, meet us here for this hike, meet us here to go kayaking,
And we'll talk. And we took a long time talking about your individual story up to this point. And the reason I wanted to take that much time is because I'm sure the vast majority of the veterans are experiencing what you have experienced at some level.
Right.
Now let's talk about how that led you to this venture you're doing now with the nonprofit. Tell us about.
So I was my family, my wife and I, and Jamie McNeil and Sean McNeil. We bought some property together in Buffalo Cove, and it's off of Trout Stream. And when we bought this property, we're trying to think of recreation area, and also how could we help other people, or what other purposes could this property bring us. And Jamie was talking to my wife, and she was talking to her on speakerphone, and she was talking about how she used to own a family care facility, and she recently sold it, and now she wants to focus on helping veterans. Like if it was up to Jamie, she would drive around in a big van and pick up every veteran that was homeless, and bring them to a safe place, and give them purpose again, and just take care of them, you know. And of course, that's not logistically possible to do. But it got my mind thinking, because I wanted, you know, I'm missing something at my job, you know, and what really drives it. It takes away my complete happiness of what I'm actually doing. So what I'm missing is that service aspect that you were talking about. I'm not really service. I'm not in a service job anymore. And so that purpose of being there for the community, or being there for my brothers and sisters in arms, is gone, and I needed that back. And so through her conversation with my wife, I just started thinking, and I started Googling, you know, based off of what she was saying, some ideas, and I came up with a therapy farm.
Okay.
And I said, hey, would you be interested in you know, taking your passion for wanting to help veterans, and my passion for wanting to be a part of this as well and help veterans, and create a farm, essentially, where veterans can come to and get the fellowship they need. But on top of that, we can add programs that drive purpose. And one of them that's really important to me, that's written in our business plan, is the skills, or the trade program that we want to be able to offer. And what it would do is take a veteran that, you know, no matter where you're at as a veteran, if you're a veteran, you're a veteran, but kind of, in my mind, the story that I've told, you are looking for purpose. Now, the only skill set you had was from the military, and it's not transitioning well into the Army or into the civilian world. And you know, you get these emails from the VA saying, hey, do you need a job? And so you fill out the thing, and you think that someone's going to call you with a job, but now you're just part of another email chain where they're sending you minimum wage jobs, or you know, that you can apply for. They're not really helping you find jobs. So one of the missions I'm on, and I'm working with a state representative, Destin Hall's office, and I've had a conversation with Congresswoman Fox's office, and I'm looking to have conversations with the county commissioners in Caldwell County, so that we can actually get this started at a larger scale.
So you're hitting local, state, and federal,
Yes.
looking to get this going, up and running.
Yes, and we are going. You know, we are very brand new. We are incorporated on March 30th. You know, we have our tax ID, and we created this as a charitable, as a nonprofit.
Which takes time to get.
It does take time, you know. So we just released our website last week, and our Facebook page last week, and also an Instagram that I have no idea really how to operate at this time.
But you're getting, yeah.
Yeah, but we have those three things that spread the awareness of this program, and the mission and the goals of that, what we're wanting to do. And we're going to start this year with small steps. Our first outing is May 13th, where we're taking a group of veterans, and we're going to bring them up to the property we have in Buffalo Cove, and we're going to just do some fellowship, some fishing, possibly, or just playing in the Joe's Creek. You know, just bring a group of people together and just start this program off that day, and then we're going to look to every month have an event, and we're going to do that until we get to the point to where we can actually have a functioning, working farm. And I've done the research and actually have a self-sustaining business plan to, once it's operational, that hopefully if the business plan works accordingly, it will fund itself, but we would still need additional outside support.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's
get out there your Facebook and your website and Instagram, what is the name of the program, and where can people find out more information looking it up?
Right. So our company name is the Foothills Veterans Therapy Farm Incorporated,
Okay.
and our website is foothillsveteransfarm.com. Let me make sure.
Yeah,
I'm
let's,
saying
yeah,
this right.
that's no problem.
Uh,
And you've got a Facebook page, and like you said, the Instagram page, and social media is very important for people because there's a lot of people out there that would like to help some way.
Right. Yeah, and that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that this is going to get our outreach out there, and we're looking for sponsorships. I would rather have sponsorships and donations versus government money. And I'm not going to turn down government money, federal money or state money. I think we can stay more honed in on our mission of what we want it to be with, because once we start accepting, especially if we accept federal money, in the form of grants. I applied for 2 grants, and once I take that grant money, I have to stay within. I have to use that money the way they tell me to use the money, and I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that, because we will. I applied for the. I applied for an agriculture grant and also a VA grant, and I'm going to look that up here in a second. The website is veteranstherapyfarm.com.
Veteranstherapyfarm.com.
Yes.
Okay.
And you can find us on Facebook by typing in Foothills Veterans Therapy Farm.
Okay.
And the same thing with Instagram as well. So the grant I applied for, the Staff Sergeant Parker grant, suicide grant, is one of the grants we applied for, and if awarded, we will stay with what they're wanting to do, because that's part of our business plan is to take veterans in that maybe are at a hopeless state, okay, and they could go either direction, and we want to be able to help them go in that direction of life.
Get them back a purpose.
Right. Give them that purpose that they need to thrive in life, and it's so possible. It doesn't matter how bad you are. You can turn your life around. And as far as homeless veterans, we would love to open our doors, because once we become established and we have the capability of having veterans on site, we want them to have a place to live. If they're going through a program like a skills or a trade program, that we want to work with local businesses, with the college to, maybe take someone and teach them how to be a welder, carpenter, HVAC, electrician.
All good money making careers.
Yes. Not something, not bring you in and teach you how to write a resume and then go out and do a minimum wage job. No, we don't want to do that. The mission would be to take someone that really wants it, come in, and we're going to help you get from no skills to actually having valuable skills. And that can't happen until we're fully operational. And the goal is to be fully operational in 2024. And by taking these smaller steps this year and showing that, we are a program worthy of sponsorship and donations, we're going to, come out of pocket if need to bring these veterans together and give them actual value of fellowship and, just community support in any way that we can. And we're going to have to limit it to smaller groups, because I don't want to ask you to come out from a different state, and then now if you're in complete destitute, you can't afford to get
yeah.
back home, you know. So we're going to limit it to smaller groups in the area, and you know we're going to give you a lunch. We can't do this all day because again, this is until we start seeing some type of funding. This is all coming out of our own pockets. So,
But you've got a good plan, and it's a flexible plan, and it's moving forward. You got to take the small steps before you got to crawl before you walk, and walk before you jog, and jog before you sprint.
that's right.
And you've got the plan, and you see the goal,
Yes.
and you know how to get to the goal. I
Yes.
mean, are you working? Do you have an idea of how to? I don't know. This is a dumb question, and it's from somebody that has no. I'm not military, so
Right.
do you have a way of like finding out when veterans are getting out of the military, like locally, and is there a way to make contact with them, be proactive? Hey, we're here, and
So it's very interesting to, and that you asked that question because before I started researching this and making a business plan out of it and executing it, I knew nothing about local veterans programs in this area. I did talk with my local VA rep in Caldwell County a couple times when I was waiting on my retirement check to start in, or just making sure everything was lining up correctly, but I had no idea that there were veterans groups out here already. And so in my research, I found that there are some very worthy veterans groups not far from here. So the Veterans Healing Farm out of Hendersonville is not Hendersonville, Henderson, North Carolina. It's kind of a similar concept, but not at the full scale of what we're wanting to do. But they bring veterans together and do. I watched their YouTube video, and I've even reached out to several people. I haven't received any contact back from people, and it may just be because they may be jaded from hearing from so many people saying they want to do similar things, and they don't follow through. I'm going to follow through with this. So if I've reached out to you, please call me back because I want to work together with local veterans. Now,
because you have the same goal.
Yeah, exactly. We do, and if we work together, we can actually, become united in a way. But I didn't know that these places existed until I started researching what was around. Now, Caldwell County, Burke County, Wilkes County, I didn't find anything of this type of scale, so I think it's very needed. Now, what I did find was Wood for Warriors, and he actually called me, and we actually had a good conversation. And this guy, he's not a veteran, but he's very he supports veterans, and he had a veteran working for him, and said, I want to do something for veterans. And this guy that worked for him was like, yeah, I'll help you. And so he put out a Facebook post that said, if you need firewood and you're a veteran, let me know. And I think that's the only advertising that he did, according to him. And so, so the first veteran called him and said, I need some firewood, and he was wanting to pay for it. He said, no, you don't need to pay me. And that's how he got started. And then it was just word of mouth for him to get around and
Grassroots.
yeah. And so hopefully, as we get started, the same will happen. Of course, I want followers on Facebook and social media to help get the word out. But I think there's going to be more value in the people actually that I have contact with, to build a relationship with, the contacts they have, and they start talking to the next person and say, yeah, these people are doing what they say they're going to do. And if you know me and you served with me and you want to get on my Facebook page and talk about the service, what the value that I had, and I'm a man of my word, I welcome you to do that as well.
And we can do that. I may not have excuse me, I may not have seen you in 20 years, me or Tim, either one.
Right.
But we can vouch. I mean, you're a good person. You're solid.
Thank you.
You mean what you say, and you say what you mean. So you're not everything comes from the heart.
Right.
You know, I would encourage everyone that listens or watches this podcast to get on the Facebook page, get on the website, do some research. If you're not a veteran, that's okay. You can, you know, we all know veterans. Our dad was a veteran. He was in the U.S. Army, served in the Korean War. We all know somebody that was in the service,
Right.
you know, and this is a worthwhile venture. It's not just a you know, flavor of the month type thing. This is something that needs to be sustained. It should have been way back, and it needs to be for as long as we have a country, we need to have veteran support.
We do, and the struggle that a lot of veterans go through, they mask it.
Mm-hmm.
They will. They won't come out and openly say it. And I think that's what another reason why they end up on that statistic of 22 a day suicides is because they don't want to open up because they were taught to suppress that, and your feelings don't matter. And really, if you're an infantry guy, nobody wants to hear you whine. No one wants to hear you cry. You just suck it up and you keep on going, and a lot of that bottles up, and it happens with me. I'll bottle up a lot of emotions, and all of a sudden it comes out, and when it does, it's not great.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have that, and maybe you're combining it with being destitute, you're poor, you can't find that value anymore. That can lead you to a bad road. It could lead you into drug use.
Yeah, and this is one of those programs where, let's say you get a veteran and they come on board and you help that veteran individually. Then they become part of the program to help other veterans. Right. They recycle what they're learning or that they've already known, actually. You're just kind of getting it out of them again.
Right. And nothing that I'm putting on my website or on Facebook is a secret. I encourage veterans that follow my Facebook post to actually look at what I'm putting because it's all sourced information. These therapies that we're talking about have nothing to do with medicine. They have everything to do with getting out there and changing those happy hormones in your
That's
brain.
the goal to get the natural. Was it natural?
The dopamine.
Dopamine. I couldn't think of it. Yeah.
The dopamine's in your brain to change your mindset. If you get out there and you get out in nature and you hike, you get out there and not everything works for everybody, and I think that's holistically across the board with diets, exercise, anything. Not out of the 8 or 9 therapies that we have listed will work for each individual, but one of them may work. Like fishing for me, unless I'm catching, unless we change that to catching, it's not very therapeutic.
Yeah.
My wife can do it. She can go out and spend hours out on the lake and not catch a thing and be fine with it. Me, my anxiety gets so like, why am I not catching stuff? And then,
yeah, I understand.
It gets to the point where it's not fun. But for other people, that's very fun. That's part of a research therapy that helps people. It's therapeutic, and hiking and boating, kayaking,
gardening or farming.
Gardening and farming.
Yes. You have all those things at this one location.
Yes, yeah, and that's the plan is to have it here, and also incorporate music lessons. But a lot of this stuff is going to take volunteers. So there's going to be plenty of volunteer opportunities because guess who doesn't know how to play a guitar? This guy right here. But I would like to. I'd like to learn how to play a guitar. I'd like to learn an instrument because that the research I've done has shown that really increases those happy hormones and it really changes the way the outlook on life that you have, and it's just all these things can be done at this farm. Have yoga instructors, have exercise classes, stretching, meditation,
nutrition.
Nutrition. Yeah, everything can be done, and not everything is going to have to be. You have to come and stay at the farm. Like if you're a local veteran and you want to come by and do things daily, that's what we want. We'll encourage it, and we want that to happen. But also if you're in Alaska and there's no place for you to go, we would want you to reach out to us. And if we're at the position where we could facilitate that flight and bring you in and house you and teach you how to weld, then that's what we want to do. We don't want to limit it. You know, if we could, we'd open it up and have thousands of veterans there, but we will have some limit. You know, in what we want it to be is valuable. When you start making, you know, and I've done some research on nonprofits, and you know they have bad reviews, you know, and the money's not going to the right place. It's because they got too big, and now they can't give that individual care that needs to happen. And so we don't want to be at that point to where, you know, where it's money driven, and you know we're in the background, you know, counting our money. You know, we want this to be a true nonprofit where it goes to the veterans, and so that we can actually give them what they need to get them on a better track in life.
Okay. All right, one more time. Let's do all the Facebook page, the Instagram, and the website. It's Foothills.
Yeah, you can find us on Facebook with Foothills Veterans Therapy Farm, Inc. And the website is veteranstherapyfarm.com. And, you know, you'll see that we have a website there. There is a donate button.
Okay.
And, you know, if you know, any little bit right now would help, because, you know, all we would do is turn around and use that for our outings to come.
Okay. And anybody that wants to get in contact with you, I'll have them get in contact with us, and then we can, you know, if they want to meet with you or help donate, or
you can contact us through the website. There's a contact form.
Very good.
There's on Facebook, you know, you can message through Facebook Messenger or WhatsApp. Again, that's
social media is the grassroots of the.
It's a very new concept for me, but there we do have a WhatsApp connected to it, and again, you can Facebook or the Instagram messaging. You know, I will do my best to get in touch with you, and we do have a email account. It's that we use for the website. So if you contact us through the website, it will come to this email. But if you want to email it directly, let me find it. I don't know that it's Foothills Veterans Therapy Farm at gmail.com.
Okay. The main thing we want people now is to get recognition of the organization, to know about, to share it, get on there, like it, tell your friends about it, look at it, research it, then get involved. That you know, the more people that know about it, the more people will get involved, and the more people will help.
And reach out. And if you're in Caldwell County, you're in this area, and you would like to see this here, reach out to your local representative and tell them that you would like to see this come to fruition. You know, contact your commissioners if you have a way to contact them and say, hey, you know this this company has reached out to you. What are you going to help them with that grant that you know, Congresswoman's Fox office? You know, that was her recommendation, is, you know, your county commissioners, your state, your local state office, to get them to write a block grant for you to get you started, so that you're brick and mortar, and then from that point things will just start rolling into place. You know, so that's what we want.
And if you also have a veteran in need, they can contact you. I know you're still at the newer levels of getting involved, but or getting growing, but still.
Yeah, if veterans, like I've recently had some conversations with veterans through the Facebook page, and you know, we just asking basic questions. But yeah, if you want to reach out to me, you know, I'll take the time to respond and have a conversation with you. We're very limited on what we can actually provide at this point, other than some advice, some life advice that I had to learn the hard way. But I'm definitely willing to.
But maybe them just volunteering to help you get this going would be therapeutic to them.
It would be, yeah.
I mean, you know, just being involved in the process. Well, Mike, thanks for coming. You can come back anytime you want. We'd like to have you back and maybe see progress of how this organization's growing and getting going. Be sure to like, share, subscribe, comment on this. This is a very good topic. It's very important, and we want it to be shared among as many people as we can get out there. And don't forget Monday afternoon Roundtable and Monday and Rao Associates. We do private investigations, private security, private firearms training, private training. We do all walks of private investigative services. So if you need that, just get up with us on that. Hopefully we'll have a last call coming up later. But thanks for joining, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you.